Welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast. If you're doing it from home and you have a spouse looking at you like she's very angry, we might have to turn the show off early. I'm your host, Gabriel Miramontes. I'm joined today by Jacob Bartley and Demont Ricks. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
We're doing
Pretty
great.
good,
It was
man.
First great week of football. Go Raiders.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that's
You guys
good.
are coming off a big win for your team. That was exciting.
Yeah, it was a good game. Best game of the week.
You know, I feel like I need to delete friends on Facebook. So many people out there, like you read things on Facebook and you look at these people who are like 30, 33 years old, and they're over here talking about these damn Raider fans. They want to talk as soon as they win. And I'm just like, I don't think I need those people in my life anymore. Like, what? Like, who are you hanging out with? Where it's just like a really weird scenario. I guess we're just getting older, guys, and like trash talk and stuff like that. I mean, trash talk is healthy, but the stuff I see nowadays, especially between like Raiders and Niners fans, it's really weird. But they don't even play each other every 5 years. Like, what's up with that?
No, honestly, I don't even dislike the Raiders. I'm happy for you guys when you win.
I dislike the 49ers, though.
Hey, I dislike the 49ers too.
It's
but I'm
like
happy
when
they
you're
win.
like your little cousin hits a home run in Little League. You're happy for him. You know?
All right.
Wow.
We don't want to get too deep into it. Welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice. You can find us anywhere on the social feeds, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at First Round Fantasy. You can also find us here on YouTube if you're listening at First Round Fantasy. Be sure to find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're virtually everywhere. So if you look and you don't see us where you listen to your podcast, you must have looked somewhere, right? Because you're listening to us right now. So awesome. Great. Cool. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. It does so much for us. You want to make us happy, right? I guarantee it. If you like and subscribe this week, you will win your fantasy matchup. There, I said it. Bold moves, Cotton. Here we go. Also, last but not least, trade evaluator form. It is out. Jacob Bartley's lovable creation. We want to get in depth. We want to know what you're thinking, the moves that you're making in your leagues. So please always feel free. If you're sitting on the fence about something and you want an extra opinion, fill it out. It's down in the link below. We'd love to hear from you. Gentlemen, week one, biggest takeaways. What are we feeling after the excitement, the highs and the lows of week one and everything that comes with it? I'll hand it off to you first, Jacob. Biggest takeaway from week one. What are you feeling?
So I've been telling people, like, look, we're a weekly podcast. We can only cover so much. So I think it's cool for us to, off the top, just what's your biggest takeaway? And there's a lot of stuff that happened. We can't cover it all. But for me, one thing that stood out heavily to me is the performances of the top three rookie wide receivers coming into the year. So I'm talking about Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. All three of them provided you fantasy points and helped you win or helped you at least put up a fight. And that's one thing we weren't sure we could count on in week one. We were worried about Jamar Chase. Smith was injured in the preseason. And, Waddle, we just didn't know what to expect. And they didn't all have great games. Like, if you look at the stat lines, they're not all amazing. But the bottom line is they put up points for you on your fantasy team. And I think that's really good because I think it bodes well for them going forward. Like, I feel very comfortable starting all three of those guys in my flex going forward. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway.
That's a good takeaway, man. I liked one that you didn't mention. He didn't get a lot of action, but when you look at a guy like Terrence Marshall over there in Carolina, he had 6 targets. He didn't do a lot with them.
Yeah, that's promising as well, too. Yeah.
Promising as well because he out-targeted DeMond's favorite player, Robbie Anderson, a.k.a. Skinny Legs. And, it just goes to show that some of these guys are being integrated into the system sooner than you would think, right? So you want to see it. You want them to get the ball. You want them to get the time and the experience. So hopefully at the end of the season, these guys that didn't pop off week one are popping off weeks 8 and later and winning your fantasy championships if you hit them.
If you're going after one of those guys, who would you guys want to trade for now out of those three?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. If I'm picking one today between the big three, Chase, Waddle, and Devontae Smith, I think Devontae Smith's value is too high.
Okay.
I think Jamar Chase's value is too high. I still think a lot of people are questionable about Jalen Waddle, and therefore I think I'd get the best value for him or be able to give up the least value for him. Just with, Will Fuller about to come back. That team didn't look good against a great New England defense. I just think that there's more opportunity for you to make wiggle room there, and I still think that as the season progresses, Jalen Waddle is going to be a PPR monster running those routes underneath. And he got a touchdown in week 1, so that's exciting. So Jalen Waddle's the guy I'm going to aim for. Not because he's the best, but because I think I can get the best value for him.
Yeah, the best value, sure.
What about you, Jacob?
I think that makes sense, Gabe. I'm actually, if I were to trade for one, it would be Devontae Smith. I think he's going to have the most consistency going throughout the whole season. And at this point, I'm willing to pay the price tag if I really need a wide receiver, because somebody drafted him as their 3rd or 4th wide receiver, and they might not need him. So they might be willing to give him up if you have some running back depth or something. So I would still try to get Devontae Smith.
We all have different guys because I would go Chase. I would spend a little extra to try and get him because I think he's only going to get better throughout the season.
Yeah, and didn't T. Higgins – Jacob and I had just made a trade in one of our leagues, and it involved T. Higgins. I won't get into too much of it. And literally that day they're playing the games, and I see T. Higgins pop up on my Yahoo report as left the game, questionable to return. And I'm like, yay when that happens, right? But so it looks like he went back out.
He went back into the game and put up more points.
He had a good game.
So
I guess that's another thing. Guys like Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts who have these high upsides, but the floors are really questionable with them. They could have very low floors. They both came out and showed us what they can do. They both had great fantasy performances. Jalen Hurts looked good, and Joe Burrow looked good. So that's pretty exciting too. It's good when guys for fantasy are good for fantasy. It's just what it is. Damon, what's your biggest takeaway from week 1?
My biggest takeaway, and I'm upset about it because I like them all off season, but I feel like Joe Mixon is a league-winning running back that you drafted most likely in the 3rd round. Like, say you go CMC, a top receiver, and then Mixon. Mixon had 29 carries this week. Nobody else was even close to that. His backup is Samaje P. Ryan, and that's not even the end of it. He stays in on passing now. So he caught 4 balls for like 39 yards. Like, this guy is like the only workhorse that I've seen through all these games this week, except for CMC, obviously. Like, just on the field all the time. Well, except for Najee, but Najee didn't do nothing. But
I'm 100% in agreement with you, Damon.
Joe Mixon is a league winner.
A league winner. That kind of value, that kind of takeaway, he's going to be amazing. I think people shied away from him. That's why he fell so far down into the 3rd round, because of his injury history. People were promised year and year after year of Joe Mixon's success, and year after year after year, he's gotten the opportunity, he gets injured. He's gotten the opportunity, he got injured. So if he can stay healthy.
Second year Burrow, right? Like he knows the system more. He drafted his wide receiver. It just makes sense that offense is so balanced. Like, I want all parts of that offense.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of question marks were about that offensive line too. You were like, I don't know if I want to take any piece of Joe Mixon with how bad the offensive line is. Is Joe Burrow going to get enough time to throw? It seemed just fine in week 1 against supposedly
against a good team too. That's the thing. Against the Vikings, that's a good team.
Well, yeah, they were horrible last year, but people thought they were going to be better this year. Yeah. So maybe we're seeing more of the same, and that they are horrible. So we need to wait for a more proven test. Yeah. Nonetheless, they still looked good. Jacob, any thoughts?
No, that's a great one, honestly. I think that, Mixon, a lot of people are worried about him. And there's different levels of league winners, right? There's like waiver wire league winners. There's guys you drafted at the very end of your draft league winners. Yeah. There's guys who fell to the 3rd round league winners, and that's the kind of league winner that Joe Mixon can be. And, hey, if he stays – I never doubted his talent. I just doubted his injury, and I avoided him. I don't have him in any league, and I'm feeling that right now. So that's a good takeaway, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I'll move on to mine really quick here. It's not so much of a takeaway as it is gauging your level of concern, gentlemen. So I'll ask you both. Both the Packers and Titans played ball on Sunday, and they were on the losing ends of both of those games, and they did so in horrendous fashion. So with that being said, look at the Packers specifically. Aaron Rodgers was horrible. Aaron Jones only had 6 carries, I think. Devontae Adams 5 for like 56 or something. Was it that the New Orleans Saints defense was just that good? Or was it just that the Packers were just that bad? They have the Detroit Lions on Monday. You're obviously starting Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Jones again, right? You have to.
Yeah,
what do you think?
You have to start them. I don't have a lot of shares of these guys, but I'm not worried about them. Like I think this was an outlier game. If Aaron Rodgers, just gives it a little bit more effort, they're going to be fine. And same for Titans too. I think these were outlier games.
It's funny you mentioned effort because he came out in post-game interview and said that they literally just felt underprepared. They thought that they'd be able to go in and just win this game, and then they got literally bulldozered. And those were words literally out of Aaron Rodgers' mouth. So
that doesn't make sense though, because how do you think you're going to beat the Saints? Like that's not like you're playing a scrub team. Like
maybe they thought Winston was going to throw like 5 interceptions, but guess what he did? He threw 5 touchdowns.
I'm concerned with Green Bay. I want no part of Green Bay. If I had Adams and Jones, I would try and sell them.
After that whole debacle of what the offseason was, and is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I don't need that kind of negativity on my fantasy football team. So I have no shares of Aaron Rodgers this year, and rightly so. But Jacob said,
I've never seen that.
Yeah, Jacob says, feel comfortable starting all your guys. I think you can definitely start Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers, he's a guy that was already almost top 10 anyways in some people's eyes. So with that being said, you might find a better option out there to stream until Aaron Rodgers gets his act together or shows that he can do it. But I think Monday night against the Lions is perfect opportunity. Let's look at the other side of the ball, or the other game, the Tennessee Titans. A lot of high hopes coming into this one, expected to be a shootout. It was a shootout, but it was a drive-by shooting because the Arizona Cardinals absolutely ran through the Tennessee Titans. Everyone had a bad game, right? A.J. Brown was saved by a touchdown. Everybody really wanted Tannehill to do just a little bit more. He really wasn't that serviceable. And then you have guys like, Julio Jones and Derrick Henry, of course, who didn't get a lot of work in. So they play against the Seahawks next Sunday. Are you starting all those guys back up again? I have a lot of shares in Ryan
for sure. Yeah.
So I will be starting him up again. Derrick Henry as well. I guess our level of concern isn't too high. Jacob seems to be like, yeah, I'm just going to throw him out there.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? It's week 1, and I wanted to focus on overreactions to week 1 on this episode, and that's the point. It's like either maybe we have some overreactions, but also we want to fight against other people's overreactions. And I think benching a Henry or AJ Brown, even a Julio, because you have a better option than in your flex than a Julio, So it just I don't think you do. So you got to start him still until we see multiple weeks of underperforming.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Jacob. We got some technical baby issues on set, but it's okay. We roll through them here on the show.
Yeah, Jacob, get your baby, dude.
Come on, Jacob, get it together, dude.
Hey, it's not the first baby we've had on the show. We literally had a baby sitting in the show one time, so it's
I
fine.
think it was Damon's first ever episode, right? He just comes in walking with his baby.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, guys.
Man.
Hey, for y'all. We have that story forever now, so
yeah.
It's cool. Dude, it's etched in our memories. It's great. Let's talk about some injury news. One of the big ones, Raheem Mostert, 2 carries into the game, averaging 10 yards a carry. Then he's gone. He's out for the season now. That is confirmed. We'll be getting into just a little bit of that as we go on, so I won't spend too much time. Jerry Jeudy, he was my guy this year. He was my knight in shining armor.
That's a big one.
He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. They say the long side of that is 6 weeks, which is probably more likely. In the first half, he looked great, man. 6 for 72. All my emotions were happy and joyous because I've been preaching him all off season, and now it just looks like he's going to take some time. So that's unfortunate. Ryan Fitzpatrick also going to miss some time. How does this affect guys like Terry McLaurin, even Antonio Gibson, maybe even Logan Thomas? Initial thoughts are, I like Ryan Fitzpatrick a lot. I also don't mind, what's his name? Tyler Heineke. So I think they're not like a clone of one another, but I think they're both serviceable. in the NFL. So I'll give it a few weeks before I start to hit the panic button on a guy like Terry McLaurin, who's not getting enough volume. But we'll just have to wait and see. And then last but not least, it's been confirmed Odell Beckham Jr. out again this week. I don't really care too much about Odell Beckham Jr.
Nobody's starting him.
Well, yeah, and even when he does come back, you're not starting him.
Yeah.
Until he shows it.
Well, unless you have to.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I guess that's it then. We just hit on injury news. Yeah. Then we're getting into the meaty portion, fellas. Our waiver wire. Oh, no, never mind. Waiver wire pickups. I thought it was dark horses all over today. But most of your waiver wires probably already hit so far. Jacob made the good point before the show that, hey, not every league is the same. Some waivers roll every single day. Some waivers roll Thursday morning. So if these guys still happen to be on your waiver wire, be sure to take a look for them. I'll go first. Tim Patrick. That is Jerry Jeudy's replacement out there in Denver. I just think that they're going to serve the same type of role. Before Jerry Jeudy was out, he served some time in the slot. Tim Patrick inserts into that role. I think he'll do just fine. They got a primo matchup against Jacksonville next week. You'd love to see it. So I'm all excited. I'm actually playing Tim Patrick over guys like Jacoby Myers, right now I'm on the fence between him and Chase Claypool, and that's mostly because of bias. I don't want to start a guy like Chase Claypool over my Raiders, but I think I might pull that trigger. But I was teetering, and I guess I'll get into that a little bit more later. But Tim Patrick is my first guy. I'm starting him in a handful of leagues, on the fence about him in some, but he's a guy that I think you can plug in right away, and he will be serviceable for your fantasy football team. Jacob, what's yours?
No, that's a good one. And if we were all as smart as DeMont, we'd already have Tim Patrick on our rosters because DeMont has him in the Dynasty League.
Didn't I trade you to him, DeMont? Didn't I trade him to you?
No, I think he picked him up last year.
Picked him up. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's a good thing.
So, look, we all know the big waiver wire pickup this week. It's Elijah Mitchell. And obviously, we're each choosing our favorite. So I think we all avoided him because he's obviously everybody's favorite one. But and we'll talk more about him later on in the episode. But my favorite one, honestly, is I think this is more long term for the season, is Kenneth Gainwell of the Philadelphia Eagles.
He should be owned, to be honest.
We thought Boston Scott was going to be the direct backup to Miles Sanders. It looks like Kenneth Gainwell is. It's on this platform I'm looking at, they only show the rushing stats, and I can't see. I think he had a catch or a couple catches, but he ran for 37 yards and 9 touches. But as a backup, that's pretty good. And I don't know his receiving stats at the top of my head, but they weren't bad. And the thing for me is Miles Sanders is already questionable in practice, like today. Yep. So if Miles Sanders is out, honestly, Kenneth Gainwell is going to be a top 20 running back if Miles Sanders ever misses. So honestly, I trust that situation where there's only 3 guys, Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and you know the pecking order, you know who's going to have the ball, you know who's starting. I trust that more than the 49ers backfield. So I would love getting Kenneth Gainwell for much cheaper than Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, and he might have standalone value, to be honest.
Like I think he could. Yeah. He could, yeah. He's a great pass catcher, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Taking those pass catching, all those pass catching downs. Not too bad of a pick. I like him too. Miles Sanders. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Miles Sanders. I was skeptical of him this offseason. He had a great week 1, but I think we just saw that in that offense, there might be some capabilities there to have 2 viable guys in the backfield. So he's worth a pickup for sure, Jacob. Good pick. Damon, I'll hand it over to you. Stir's yours.
I have a trio of receivers. 2 of them are like mostly owned 50%. I got Sterling Shepard and Christian Kirk on that end. So these 2 guys should be on teams, to be honest. But if they're not, I would go out. They're worth a waiver wire pickup for sure. I made the mistake of thinking that Galladay was going to be important over there. So that's my fault. But Christian Kirk looked good. If it seems like Murray looks for him on the deep balls, which is good. But my low, like dark horse is Hunter Renfrow. 6 catches, 9 targets, 70 yards. And today the Raiders just submitted a complaint to the NFL because he was being held and tackled like repeatedly by Queen on the Baltimore.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he could have easily had like 100-yard game if that guy wasn't cheating.
So that's funny that Renfro was Justin's if he would have made the show. So good pick.
Oh really? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would pick him. I'm actually probably going to in a bunch of leagues. So Hunter Renfro over those two guys.
Hunter Renfro over those two guys. That might be your. Well, I'll tell you this. I like.
Get those guys.
True. I like Christian Kirk. He's also got some really good Well, he doesn't have the best matchups coming up, but he's got the Vikings and then the Jaguars, two susceptible defenses, and we know that we got some deep balls there. So I like Christian Kirk, and I like Sterling Shepard. I was actually doing some research today, and carrying over from last season, this was Sterling Shepard's third game where he caught a touchdown last year in your fantasy playoffs, or actually week 17, so it doesn't matter. He had 113 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, I think he had like 80 yards and a touchdown. So he's putting together a string of games here, carrying over from last year, where we're seeing a little bit of a connection with him and Daniel Jones. I was kind of skeptical at first because I thought, Evan Ingram's wasn't there. He was out. He was injured. Maybe when he comes back, that's going to dip into it. But Evan Ingram was there last year, and it just seems that when Sterling Shepard's healthy and Daniel Jones is still in the ball, Sterling Shepard's going to catch some balls. So I like Sterling Shepard the most out of your three.
Don't we always get excited for him, though, and then pick him up?
That's my problem. I've gone through the past 4 or 5 years thinking he's going to be the guy. They trade Odell. Sterling Shepard's going to be the guy. Never happens. He always has the target share, though, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. But I do like Sterling Shepard. So I'll say I'll be the guy to throw my hat in the ring this time. How about you guys sit back, do your thing?
I mean, it was DeMont's pick, by the way.
Oh, that's true. It was DeMont's pick. But anyways. All righty. Now it's time, folks. The cream of the crop, our favorite part of the show. It is our dark horses of the week. Let's get into it. I will hand it over to Jacob Bartley first. Jacob Bartley. First, let's recap, actually.
Yeah.
Let's see how we did. Last week, dark horses, I had Melvin Gordon. Thanks a lot to that 70-yard touchdown run. That saved me and hit him over the ceiling board for me. So I hit on that one. Jacob, you had Trey Sermon, but then I believe you fell back on Raheem Mostert. I think you get a NA this week because
exactly. It's gross.
Yeah, it was gross. So we'll let that one slide. Joseph went with Gus Edwards, which I believe he then tilted back to Tyson Williams. So I believe that's a hit as well. Tyson Williams, 18 fantasy points. So that's good. And Justin went with Trevor Lawrence, went out and dished 30 fantasy points. Didn't look so good for actual NFL purposes, but he put up a pretty good fantasy day. So you can't complain about that. Let's talk about this week, gentlemen. And I'll start with you, Jacob Bartley. Who is your week 2 dark horse?
Yeah, so again, we want to reiterate that we're not choosing CMC, like start CMC as a dark horse. We're choosing, guys that you're on the fence about starting or guys you might not ever think about starting. So my choice for week 2 dark horse, I want to go with a guy that I really believe in and that I think could have a big matchup this week. Now, we just talked about the Packers, and I'm going with A.J. Dillon as my dark horse of the week. Now, I will admit this is more for deeper leagues or if you're really desperate at running back. We play in us three are actually in this league. We play in a 12-team dynasty league where we have 10 roster spots, double flex and a super flex. So the rosters are spread out very thinly. And I'm throwing him into my flex this week because I think the Packers are going to come out on fire. I think they're going to blow the Lions out. I think Aaron Jones is going to help them get that lead. And then I think they're going to let A.J. Dillon run the clock out all game. And he's going to end up with a good stat line, enough to get you maybe 12 to 15 fantasy points. I'm not saying he's going to blow up and get you 30 this week, but I do think he's either going to run the clock out once the Packers are up, or he's at least going to find the end zone. So I think you can get a good start out of A.J. Dillon this week. That's my dark horse for week 2.
Yeah, you're banking on the fact that the Packers are going to go out and blow up the Detroit Lions. I believe that's who they're playing on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a perfect scenario. If that happens and they're looking to kill some clock, A.J. Dillon is your guy. They also saw some shared work in that game against New Orleans. They both got 5 or 6 carries, so there was a shared workload there. It's a matter of who falls in the end zone. And if A.J. Dillon's is a bigger back, he might be the guy that's in and around the end zone. So he could follow his way into a touchdown. Jacob, that's not a bad pick. I like it. It's a true dark horse, I will say.
No, it is. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Joe knows I'm A.J. Dillon fanboy. I love this guy. So I'm rooting for him. But I'm not just going to blindly suggest to start him. I think this is just a unique situation where you can't start him this week.
Fair enough. Damon, what about you? Your week 2 dark horse.
So me and probably a million other Americans that drafted James Robinson were sitting on our couch, excited. Trevor Lawrence, Laviska Shenault, James Robinson. What's going to happen? Like, I'm sitting there. I'm so excited. I have the game on Sunday ticket. That's the game I'm watching. And what do I see? Carlos Hyde rushing the ball, out rushing James Robinson, right? So my dark horse is James Robinson, only because I do not want you to bench him next week for Elijah Mitchell, because I guarantee you James Robinson will do better than Elijah Mitchell next week. James Robinson has 64% of the snaps. Hyde only had 34%, but just when they put Hyde in, they would run the ball. Trevor Lawrence threw 51 times, which is ridiculous. You're not going to win a game unless you're Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning if you throw the ball 51 times. So there's no way they're going to come out and do that again. And who do they play next week, actually? The Jaguars? Chicago?
That's a good question.
Hold on 1 second.
Who do the Jaguars play?
Yeah, who do they play next week?
I believe they play Denver.
Yeah, Denver, yeah. Denver.
Oh, Denver? Not an easy matchup, but I would still run with them just because I think they're going to force feed them. And I wouldn't think Hyde is going to be a problem only because he only played 34% of the snaps. The only reason he outrushed him was because they just ran the ball in those short percentage of snaps that he was in. So, yeah, that's my dark horse. I think he's going to go over 100 yards next week, combined yardage.
Wow.
So that's
big boy making big moves. I like it, man. Urban Meyer came out and said today that they do not plan to throw the ball over 50 times a game like they did last week in Houston. They want to establish the run. Who do you do that with? Not Carlos Hyde. James Robinson should look to be more involved, and you should start him with confidence, according to Demont Ricks. And you have my backing too, Demont. That is a good dark horse pick. Some people might be jaded.
You have to say you'll start him over Elijah Mitchell.
It should be a good call, because if Urban Meyer wants to change, obviously it didn't work. They played arguably the worst team in the league, and they couldn't perform. So he has to put the ball in the younger, fresher running back's hands. So hopefully that's right.
That's right. All right. My week 2 dark horse. Again, I mentioned this earlier. I was teetering on the fence about starting him or someone else, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's Chase Claypool, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, last week, or I guess on Monday night, you saw Marquise Brown, that deep threat for Baltimore, able to get behind that Raiders defense. They are susceptible back there. They gave up a few deep throws to not only him, but Sammy Watkins. Chase Claypool is that guy for the Steelers. He's going to be that guy that does the gadget plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's also going to be that guy that runs downfield and takes those long bombs. I see him doing that a handful of times against my Las Vegas Raiders this week. Hopefully, the Raiders can pull it out. I got faith in you guys. But that's not to say that Chase Claypool is going to have himself a day. A lot of people might be Debbie Downers on him this week because of last week's performance against the Buffalo Bills. I do not have any worry about that. Buffalo Bills are the real deal when it comes to defense. What I do have a worry about is Ben Roethlisberger. He showed a lot of the same last week of what he is not capable of doing anymore at this stage in his career. However, when you play the Raiders and you play that defense, something in the passing game is going to go right. And I believe that's going to go Chase Claypool's way this week. So I believe so. I have him jotted down here. What were you going to say, Damon?
Oh, no, continue.
Oh, I just have him down here for plus 18 or more fantasy points. I was going to be bullish and have him at 20, but I think on Yahoo right now he's right around 15. So I'd say right there between 18 and 20. And, hey, if he gets over 20, he's doing his job and some. So I like Chase Claypool this week against Pittsburgh Steelers.
I was just going to say I like that because I've never seen hype die so fast after 1 week. Before the season, Claypool was the guy. you want to draft him. Oh, he's like the best mid-round pick, and now it's like nobody's even trying to mess with him after that week 1. But that was a tough matchup, like you said.
Well, I think if we have enough time, we're going to get
quick,
one
more. I'll just get my thoughts on that real quick. I think that's a good call, Gabe, because if you look at what Marquise Hollywood Brown did against the Raiders, not saying that Claypool's going to be the one to ball out of the 3 Steelers wide receivers, but one or more of them are. So I think that's a good call.
I like subtly as our camera angles change from welcoming Justin into the show. We'll get to you in a second, Justin. As the camera angles changed, I looked at Jacob's camera and I noticed you had a notepad or something behind you, and you immediately realized it and turned it face down. What is that, Jacob? What do you have on that paper?
No, it's a calendar. It's a calendar, all right?
Oh, you certainly turned that over, Faye, really quick.
It's a
Are
calendar.
you drawing hentai, dude?
Yeah, show us the first page.
My personal stuff. But anyways, we have a viewer question. And welcome, Justin, to the podcast. We'll start this viewer question real quick, and then maybe we can get Justin's dark horse for the week. So we got a question from Renaissance Man. Hello, Renaissance Man. Thank you for joining us. And they asked, who is the more productive RB for the rest of the season, Trey Sermon or Elijah Mitchell? I'm going to talk more about this later, but I'll just give my quick thought. Who the hell knows? But do you guys have any thoughts on that? Let's start with Justin, maybe.
I got to go with Elijah. I mean, Shanahan's a no BS type of guy. And if he's going to come out and just call it how it is, I don't see how it's going to change overall because they're both rookies. It's not like they had different playing grounds. So that was shocking, but he did well.
I would argue that Shanahan is an all BS guy, but that's a conversation for another time. Gaber DeMont, you guys got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, that's your guys' backfield out there in San Francisco. With that being said, I think it's going to be a hot hand every single week approach. Whoever's doing great is going to be the guy to get the carries. Clearly, Elijah Mitchell had the hot hand last week. I think he'll be the one to get the run of the mill next week. And then if he can keep it strong, he's going to be the guy to keep it going. So it's whoever has the hot hand over there in San Francisco. But if I had to answer the question straight up, rest of season, that is a bold call. Right now, I'd probably have to lean Trey Sermon. You don't invest that kind of draft capital on a guy and don't use him. So I think
I said who the hell knows, and that's my real answer. But if gun to my head, I have to choose, I honestly would stick with Sermon for the rest of the year. I've seen this play out ever since Shanahan has came here, and it's always flip-flopped, and we'll talk more about this later. But welcome back, DeMont.
Yeah, sorry, technical issues.
So maybe we can go back to Justin's dark horse, right?
Let's go. Justin, who's your dark horse for week 2?
Did you already go over yours?
We already did, so we'll just wait for yours.
I don't think anyone got mine, but I got to go with my boy Chase Edmonds. And I know I would say he's kind of fringe. That's why I was okay putting him there, because maybe you have a better option. But I think this week he blows up. They have a good matchup against Minnesota. I think the points will be there, and I think the more time goes on, Chase Edmonds is going to be more of a PPR guy, as we saw. I just love that matchup against the Vikings, and I want to roll that out, no doubt.
Hey, when you're a guy who's starting him as your RB1, you got to love to hear it. So, of course, I want Chase Edmonds to blow up this week. That's not a bad pick. I've been high on them all offseason. They do have a great matchup this week. Ride Chase Edmonds into the sun as your dark horse this week, Justin, and be confident. You got a call out for fantasy points? What are we thinking?
If it's fair, if it's not enough, tell me, but 15 plus easily. I would put him fringe 20, maybe plus.
I think his Yahoo projection is right around 14 and a half right now. So if you want to shoot just a little bit shy over that, maybe 16, 17, that's good.
I'll go 17 plus for him.
Let's do it. I
think that's fair because like I was talking about with league winners, there's different levels of this dark horse thing, right? Like my AJ Dillon super deep sleeper start this week, right? But Edmonds, maybe you're considering him in your RB2 spot and you're not sure. And so Justin's saying put him in your RB2 spot and feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm fortunate enough to have him as a flex, so I treat him as a flex option. But if you're worried about a wide receiver like a Corey Davis or Edmonds, I'm going Edmonds on that. That's how I put him as my dark horse. I want to flex him this week. But if you're starting him, don't feel bad about that either.
Yeah, Nap. Oh, guys, I keep thinking I'm muted, and we keep losing Damon. Technical difficulties here today. We're just not
Okay,
running.
we'll just keep it going. Keep it going. At least Justin came in at the right time.
Yeah, there we go. Right. All right. Well, that's enough of dark horses this week. Actually, Renaissance Man, another question. You want to pop that up, Jacob?
Oh, sure.
Callaway or Amon St. Brown, week 2. Gentlemen, what are you thinking?
Callaway or
Renaissance
Amon-Ra
Man,
St.
with
Brown.
the tough questions. What kind of league do you play in?
So I'm going to have to bring up their matchups this week really quick if somebody wants to get started.
First, are we talking about Equinus?
So Callaway, the Saints play Carolina, and I think we're talking about we must be talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is playing the Packers. That's a tough one. Justin, you want to start with that? You have a share of Amon-Ra.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know what type of league because I hope that I can find a better flex option than that. But if I had if I had to say one of the two, I'm gonna go Amon because they play the Packers. The Packers just got disgraced on, and I'm assuming that they're playing the Lions. They're gonna want to beat their division rival and also show up. And week 1 was just a fake. So I'm gonna go Amon, saying that they're gonna go down by 20 and just have to air it out nonstop. Other than that, I don't like either. But if I had to choose, it would be Amon.
I don't like either option either, to be honest. But if I'm sitting there, these are my only 2 options for my flex, my last flex. I'm going Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know the Detroit wide receivers did not do too much last week. All the balls were going to the running backs and TJ Hawkinson, but for the eye test, because I watched that whole game against the Niners, and the eye test for me, Amon-Ra looked really good. So
I will have to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to go Marquez Callaway. I know that Jameis Winston, tremendous week 1 performance. You're not going to get that every week out of him. And not only that, he had that great week 1 performance, and Marquez Callaway was not even involved. I think he only had 1 target or something along those lines. He had a tremendous showing in preseason. At some point, that's going to have to prove noteworthy, and I think that comes up again in week 2. I'm starting Marquez Callaway over Amon St. Brown. If you guys want to book it down, Renaissance Man just gave it to us. He gave us the perfect.
I'm not booking that down. I said that's like a gun to my head answer. I'm not booking it down.
Hardest book it down. I wouldn't know what to do. I'm gonna stay away from that. But I like the way you act.
Oh, hey, thanks, Renaissance Man. We appreciate it. Do with it what you will, and good luck to you, my friend.
Let us know what type of league and how many players. I'm curious why you're under that.
Yeah, if you got the time, let us know the deets of your league, and we'll be sure to get into it a little bit more if we have the time. Guys, we're moving into our sleepers. Not our sleepers. We're moving into our Fool's Gold players this week, week 2. Before we do that, let's touch on last week's Fool's Gold players. I had Damian Harris. Worked out in my favor. I mean, if you're not playing in a standard league, Damian Harris is just shaky as all get out. Very touchdown dependent. I hope he gets that way. The fumble lost him 2 points. Other than that, he had a 100-yard rushing game, but it doesn't cut it for fantasy purposes. So he hit for me. Jacob, you had DeAndre Swift. That didn't go so well. Joe, you had Josh Jacobs. Found his way into the end zone a few times. Didn't go so well. Justin, you and I both hit 2 for 2. You chose Tua Tagovailoa, and he did what you said he was going to do, underperform.
That's right.
That's right. The man of few words. I like it. So let's get into our week 2 Fool's Gold players. Justin, I'll start with you. Hot off the press, man. Let's get it.
I'm sad because I share a Fool's Gold with somebody, but I put Swift. And same reasons I want to go on Amon and the viewer question. I don't think that Swift is going to have the allowance to hit this week because, yes, he's a dynamic and a PPR style back, but we saw the usage Jamal Williams get. So I think I'm going Williams over Swift. That's why I rather not go Swift's way. They play the Packers. I think Packers are going to smoke them.
So I think we can cut this all into one video because Justin chose Swift as his Fool's Gold this week. Damont's going the whole Detroit backfield, Swift and Williams. So Damont, why are those your Fool's Gold this week?
They're my Fool's Gold this week because I think that somebody will start But there's somebody out there, right, that's going to start Jamal
Both of
Williams.
them? Oh.
Try either, if they have both of them, they're going to start both of them, which is probably a mistake. Because, guys, when's the last time the starting running back and a backup running back got 8 catches? Like, that doesn't happen. Like, that just doesn't happen. And that's where they did most of their damage, especially in a PPR league. I could see somebody benching James Robinson, right, because of that week, and Carlos Hyde, and then starting Williams. That's probably Justin. I wouldn't do that just because I think that game was a fluke. It was all game script. Things happened that shouldn't have happened, and to allow them to get all those points. So that's why that's my fool's goal, because you'll be chasing what happened that last week when I don't think that's possible again.
I hear you, but to counter, that's why I include Williams. They have no wide receivers. They have one tight end that's basically their only receiver that they can trust. Someone's got to catch the ball, and that's going to be Swift or Williams. And in a game script like this, I go Williams, hence the Swift bench.
Yeah, sure. But then, like you said, or like say, so would you start Williams, like one flex PPR over James Robinson?
No. I think James Robinson is better than both of them. I'm speaking specifically from that backfield.
Yeah,
it would be a ballsy move, but that's why it's fool's gold to bench Swift and start Jamal Williams. That's what I would do.
Okay,
bench Swift and drop that. I will do a fool's goal. I will do a book it down, my friend.
That's a good one.
Book it down there. Who has the better fantasy week, Jamal Williams or DeAndre Swift?
What's weird is that Williams got more carries. Like it's just weird. That was a weird
one. Because he's my boy, I'll take that. I got Jamal Williams this week over Swift.
Let's do it. Better fantasy finish DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Williams. I'm going DeAndre Swift. Justin's going
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams.
Swift.
Guys, take what you want.
Swift.
Oh, that is tough, man.
That's easy, dude. That was all game script.
Yeah. I'm going Swift. I'm going Swift because Jamal Williams had way less fantasy points until that last drive by Jared Goff and the Lions. So
Scribe Jacob, get it down for us. Book it down, please. We appreciate you. I love it. I'll throw my 2 cents in really quick just because we're on the topic. Yeah, man, I think that if the same thing happens like it did last week, where you're going to see the Detroit Lions down by a lot of points, we talked about it earlier. We expect Aaron Rodgers to return to form to at least some extent this week. And if he does that, the Lions are going to be chasing points. And I don't think you're going to be running the ball a ton. I think you're going to be passing the ball. I know that they're both applicable. I know that they're both good. See, I had to change my words there because I couldn't pronounce the other one. They're both good pass catching options. I think Swift is the better pass catcher, though, and I think he's going to get more work. So
you're going with Swift, right?
I'm going with Swift.
Okay.
I feel like they're probably even pass catchers.
Well, they both caught 8 passes last week, so it's the perfect scenario.
I wouldn't be surprised if they both finished like within 1 or 2 fantasy points of each other to end the year, to be honest. And that's good for Williams because nobody expected that from Williams.
Whoa,
be a great value.
Nobody. Don't say nobody.
Except Justin and I.
I'll give you one more selling point. Swift is young. Swift got banged up. You don't sign someone like Jamal Williams to not utilize him. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right, man.
Leave
it as that and let the cards fall where they fall. We're moving on to Jacob's Fool's Gold player for week 2. Who do you got, my friend?
Well, this choice it has a lot more behind it, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. My Fool's Gold for this week is Elijah Mitchell or Eli Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers. And this is basically has to do with how, look, he had a great performance, right, in week 1. No, I wake up Sunday morning and Sermon's healthy scratch and, Mostert, everybody's like, oh, Mostert, and Mostert gets injured. And then we have Elijah Mitchell to step in. Shanahan didn't plan for this. He just made the choice within the game. Yes, he played well against the Lions. And if you saw that one huge play he had, the Lions that didn't know what to do. And so I think that's a testament to how bad the Lions defense is compared to how good Elijah Mitchell is. And look, I like him. I've been keeping my eye on him for a while because I'm a 49ers fan, but I don't know. I just do not trust Kyle Shanahan for fantasy. I love him as my team's football coach because the bottom line, what I should care about as a fan is if they win. So I don't care who their running back is as long as they win. But for fantasy purposes, I think as a fantasy manager, fantasy analyst, or whatever, you have the right to complain about these type of situations because even though Kyle Shanahan has no reason to tell the public or tell the media who his starting running backs are going to be or who's going to be the active week 1, it hurts so many different people. Like all these are people's careers who cover this stuff, and they're like telling you start Trey Sermon. And in DFS, people were talking about Trey Sermon as a huge play for DFS, as a very affordable option for DFS. And people wake up. Maybe some people don't wake up until right before the games start, and they're like, "Wait a minute, well, I just lost my DFS matchup because they put a healthy scratch in this guy we've all been hyping up all off season." And to me, that's equivalent to like a betting matchup and the betting odds in Vegas, and then they don't say who the starting quarterback is, and the day of, they're like, "Oh, the guy you thought it was is a healthy scratch. It's the other guy." Like, you just can't do that. I mean, he can do it. He has the right to do it. But like in my mind, as fantasy managers, we don't want to see that. So to me, you can't trust the 49ers, and apparently you can't trust the wide receivers either. But that's a conversation for another day. To me, you can't trust who's going to have the hot hand, who it's going to be. If maybe Elijah Mitchell is the RB1 for the next 3 weeks, then the next week it's Trey Sermon. Then when Jeff Wilson Jr. comes back, it's Jeff Wilson Jr. And it's going to be nonstop all year. So for me, you don't know. I don't feel comfortable starting Elijah Mitchell. I actually have him in a few leagues, and I'm not starting him unless I absolutely have to. So for me, and look, I could be wrong. He could be the number 1 waiver wire pickup, top 5 running back for the rest of the year. That's possible, but I don't believe it. And I think you're better off if you have better options this week than Elijah Mitchell.
Jacob, let it all out, my friend. Let it all out.
Oh man, I woke up that morning.
I hear a Niner fan.
No, but in combination with Mitchell, is Debo full school too for you?
Kind of, but I think Debo's still going to be good. Like, I just don't. People are right. Lock it down. Elijah Mitchell, RB1. That's what people are doing, and I'm like, no, don't do it. And Justin, it's not. I would go the opposite way if I was going for my homerism, because I said I don't care. We beat the Lions. Elijah Mitchell balled out. He helped us get that win. That's what a homer should say. I'm the opposite. I'm upset for myself and other fantasy managers.
No, I'm saying I hear the pain.
Oh, because I'm so invested in it.
Yeah, I mean, and as we see every year under this coaching staff, like, we loved McKinnon, and then it ended. It's a hard spot to pick every week.
No, I know
it's a hard knock life. All right, you just gotta shoot and hope it lands, my friend. Good luck to you and your team. We have another. By the way, that was the conclusion of your rant for your Fool's Gold player this week.
Yes.
Awesome. Renaissance Man pops in with another question. We'll be sure to get to it right now. What are your thoughts on KJ Osborne? He is currently the 3rd string receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, Justin's Minnesota Vikings. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 72 yards. Look, he had a great showing. This is a guy that we might be telling you to pick up in 2 weeks from now. For me, I got to see more before I believe it. They have other options there. They're still trying to figure out that tight end position with Herndon and Conklin. You know, we know Thielen and Jefferson are going to get theirs. And at the core of it, they're a running football team. So I don't know if I trust maybe the 4th option. He was getting that slot work, so that's good to see. But I think I got to see a little bit more before I jump the gun and set off the fireworks for a guy like KJ Osborne. So I hope that helps, Renaissance Man. Any thoughts from the Minnesota man himself?
If he's in a deep league like that, then I mean, I wouldn't mind it, because we lost the tight end that we had hopes for. We're running more 3 wide receiver sets, so he's going to be on the field more. However, JJ had like a low-endish type of day that we expect out of him. I don't see that happening often. They both had 9 targets, but if you add a score or 2 for JJ, that takes away like offensive plays. It's odd. I would hold for now, but if you're in that deep of league, it might be all right.
Yeah, like an 18-team league, yeah.
18. You know what I heard about today? Because we have a little bit of time, but I'll shoot off my my Fool's Gold player in a minute. You know what I heard about today? Guillotine leagues. Have you guys ever heard of them before?
Yeah.
So they're kind of what Damon
They
just said.
sound
They're
fun.
They're 18 team leagues, right? So you get 18 guys, or they could be 16. You could just play the first 16 games of the season. And what they do is you draft your team, and each week the team with the lowest point total is eliminated for the rest of the season. And his team's players go to the waiver wire where everybody else has a chance to blindly bid some sort of amount of fab, whether it be $1,000 or $100 on their team's players. So what happens is week by week, these teams that are the lowest scoring teams hit the chopping block. And to be quite honest with you, I think you can start one at any given time in the season. So if you guys are open to it, we can talk about it after the show.
That sounds fun.
Seems like a pretty fun
I
concept.
definitely want to try one day, to be honest.
I don't think I've ever gotten the lowest scoring team ever, except for last year because that don't count.
Oh, yeah.
The winner goes undefeated, technically, huh?
Well, not
you just have
necessarily
to
goes
not lose
undefeated.
every
They
week.
just don't have to
It's undefeated.
score. They don't score the lowest amount of points.
Lowest
So it's not even about weekly matchups against one
true,
person.
yeah.
You're basically playing the board of points. So if you have the lowest amount of points out of the 18 guys, you're going home. Your team goes on the waiver wire, and everybody else gets to bid on them.
Just because week one, let's say Kamara goes to the waiver wire week one, that doesn't mean you want to spend all your fab because CMC could be on the waiver wire the next week. So you got to strategize in that. I'm down to try one day.
Interesting.
All right. I'm down to try one too. We have a lot of questions in the comments. I'm going to get to my fool's goal player right now so that we can address all these comments down at the bottom. So my fool's goal player for week 2 is Atlanta running back Mike Davis. He looked good. I know Damon and I were texting. Damon was texting the group chat, I should say, and he had mentioned that Mike Davis looked pretty good. That was before things got a little bit rough, but he looked good early on, and he had a pretty decent performance. Not even the man himself, Zeke, had a great performance against his next opponent, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't expect any handouts from them, and don't expect anything from Mike Davis. I am full shying away, even if you drafted him as your RB2. Find someone else. It's a red horn alert. That team did not look good. They're going to have other people running the ball, Cordell Patterson as well, and company. So Mike Davis, full shy away this week against a horrendous matchup. He's not even half the talent that Zeke is. No offense, because he's half the talent and more than I am. I don't. That was a really poor analogy. He's 10 times better than I'll ever be. But I'm just saying, against that Tampa Bay front, you don't want to start Mike Davis. So stay away from him. He is my fool's gold player for week 2. All righty. We got a few minutes left. Let's jump into these comments here. Johnny Quest coming into the house. Shefty was talking before the game that he had heard Mitchell beat him on the depth chart. I think Mitchell is a first and second down with Hasty on third. Do you guys feel the same? I'll tell you right now, Justin and Jacob both hinted at it slightly. My eyes are on a guy like Jeff Wilson Jr. We saw last year when Raheem Mostert missed time. Everyone thought he'd just kind of be put to the side after he missed that time. He came back. He was instantly inserted back into the team, into the role. He was a lead back, 14, 15 carries a game. Jeff Wilson, the same way. I remember a game a couple of weeks or last season where it was him and McKinnon on the depth chart. McKinnon comes in, 14 carries, gets hurt, then insert Jeff Wilson Jr. He blows up in the second half. Who's the guy that comes out next week? Jeff Wilson, 16 carries that game. So I think if there's a repertoire of players here who have a chance to succeed, I like a guy. I would stash someone like Jeff Wilson Jr., who is for sure on numerous waiver wires right now because he's currently on the PUP list, not eligible to return until week 6. You know, we talk about how weird Shanahan is. He likes his guys who have showed up in the past. Jeff Wilson is a guy who has showed up in the past, who has been injured before, and has continued to pop up on waiver wire shows again and again. I like a guy like Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah,
but for right now,
a lot too.
For right now, what are you guys thinking about? This is all you, Jacob. This is all Niners.
The thing about, and obviously I talked about this in depth, but the thing about the Shefty thing is the problem is that was reported on Sunday morning. And look, I woke up at 9:30 that morning, so I wake up, I got to make some quick moves, but a lot of people are up early, so maybe they have time to make those adjustments. But it's not like we knew 3 days ahead of time, or nobody knew this until Sunday morning. So that's the problem with that. So it's not like people can't pretend like I knew this was going to happen. Like it was reported on ESPN Sunday morning. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a good chance Elijah Mitchell has a good game this week, but I just don't trust it season long, honestly. And yeah, I already talked about it, so we're good.
Fair enough. Well, it looks like we got our keep, trade, cut segment for the day. Virtue brought to you by Gio Ramos. Gio says, it looks like it's a Niners day here, guys. I promise we're not a Niners dedicated podcast, but it is keep, trade, bench. I think it's keep, trade, cut is what I would think, because you can't keep a guy and bench him at the same time. So we're going to go keep, trade, cut. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell. What is this?
What? Okay, so he said, I think for this question, because you would never drop any of those guys. So his keep, trade, bench actually makes sense. So I think he's saying it should be start, trade, bench, right?
Well, you're starting George Kittle. He's your tight end. So then it's between the flex spot, Deebo or Elijah Mitchell.
Well, what you could do, you could trade Kittle and start Deebo. You know, that's a possibility because you might get more value for Kittle. But I would start Kittle, trade Deebo, and bench Elijah Mitchell if I have to choose between these three for that.
I'd trade Kittle, keep Deebo, cut Elijah Mitchell. Actually, you know what? Take that back.
Bench. Cut is a strong word.
Bench. Justin?
I keep Kittle, bench Elijah, trade Deebo.
Yeah, because this is probably the highest value Deebo is going to be at this week. So
no way, he's a stud, man. I didn't want to say anything because you all are Niner fans, but that dude's a good wide receiver, and everyone hyped up Ayuk. I don't know in what world Ayuk goes above him, but Deebo's better than Ayuk, so I think he's
Justin, I couldn't agree with you more, and I've agreed with you in the past. We were both high on Deebo over Ayuk.
Better outlook.
I don't recall you guys ever saying that, but okay.
That's why you're
Let's pull it up.
Wait,
Justin, what'd you say?
I said that's why you're a league winner, because you agree with me. That's what happens when you agree with me.
And if you don't recall, Jacob, last week on the pod, I told Joe straight up,
to be honest,
better rest of the season, Ayuk or Deebo Samuel.
This is why I said Deebo Samuel. Our videos titled "Overreacting to Week 1" because that is no implication on whether Ayuk is better than Deebo or not. That has nothing to do with it. It's Shanahan playing his mind games again. So that's all.
But I can tell you that Deebo is better than Ayuk. I mean, he's just better physically. He's a more talented wide receiver. I think they serve different roles. I won't disagree with you there. Ayuk is good at what he does.
I just think
that Deebo Samuel is the guy that you're going to give the ball to.
I just think that's so easy to say right now because like 95% of people were saying Ayuk was better than him all offseason.
Justin and I said it before week 1. We are the gods. Justin is the wide receiver guru himself.
How many times do I have to tell you about the hype boys of the world and the Ayuk being one of them? It's not saying he's bad, but Deebo is the wide receiver 1 for that team. Wouldn't you say as a Niner fan?
Well, we didn't know going into this year because Deebo struggled with injuries and Ayuk took the job last year, so we didn't know. So.
All right. Well, hey, we can't keep this a Niners podcast. I'm sorry.
Well, look, they were very relevant this week, so they were all very always going to be talking about.
Gio, I understand you can't start every single 49er that you have on your team. Good luck with that, my friend. With that being said, I think that's going to do it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to drop a like and subscribe. Like I said, I guarantee you win your fantasy matchup this week if you subscribe. So please do it. If you haven't, if you've already subscribed, unsubscribe and then subscribe again. You'll win your fantasy matchup. It works that way too. You can catch us anywhere you get your podcast. That's Spotify, Apple, anywhere else. You can find us on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook, and as well as YouTube at First Round Fantasy. Please feel free to fill out that trade evaluation form. We're just sitting here waiting to discuss all those fancy trades you got for us. We love to talk fantasy football, and we love to communicate with you guys. With that being said, good luck with all your fantasy matchups in week 2, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.